Thokozani, Governor here. I am here to just answer a question. So it's sort of like a Q&A kind of a session. I did a live yesterday on TikTok, but unfortunately, I'm struggling to download the live so that I can put the video here on YouTube. Welcome to Learning with Noma. If you're new to the channel, I'm Gognoma. This is your home of comprehensive learning and healing. So yeah, the question that I'm going to answer today is, why do our loved ones ask for us to do cultural things for them once they've passed on, when they did not lead such a life? Our grandparents, our parents, we went to church, but now that my mom is gone, she comes back and she's asking for me to go fetch her. Where do I fetch her? How do I fetch her? Why should I fetch her? Scenarios such as those. So I'm going to start by going back to history and looking at how things were done in the olden days. As I always say, that whatever that I share in my platform, on my platform, is purely my own experience with spirit, is my own experience, my own lived experience. It's also from the teachings and learnings that I get from different spiritual teachers that walk in my path, and not just spiritual teachers in the sense of Abankoma or Baprofita, but even the cultural leaders, because you do have people who are custodians of the culture and traditions, and they grew up learning these things, and they now are able to give the knowledge to those that are left behind. So in the olden days, when it came to the process, and I'm just going to talk about death and not take it from birth, because we know even with birth, a child is introduced as soon as the mother is known to be pregnant, and there's other rituals that take place from the first trimester, second trimester, up until the last trimester before the woman gives birth, even into the fourth trimester after birth, which is the postpartum, when the baby is born. Those rituals are done. Introduction of the baby to the ancestors, introduction of the baby to the physical realm. I mean, up until one is 18 or 21, where we now talk about umemulo in Nguni culture or in the Zulu culture. So when it comes to death, in the olden days, this is what would happen. One is sick, you are in your own homestead, you are sick, you are kept in one of the huts, and you are being taken care of by family. If kukona inyanga that must come and see you, izoza right there where you are endlini. And they would bring their herbs and they will take care of you. They will either travel daily. But if there is a need for you to be taken to Indumbagagwagwa, then you will be taken. But in most instances, you will find that Umelapi would come, to your homestead to check you, because you are physically not well to walk or to go and see them, and doing is good way. And then one passes on, still in the same yard that they lived in, around the same people that are family, the wife, the kids, sisters, brothers, whatever would make up the homestead that one is staying in. And there was no mortuary, so the body is not moved from the homestead to another place. It's still there. But rituals will still be done, where one would then be cleansed. And in those olden days, you remember that in the past, even umntana makavela, there'll always be impande yasekhaya that will be used to cleanse or to introduce this baby and protect the baby. So even when one passes on, each and every house would have impande that would be used for their dead, to say, this is how we cleanse you of the physical realm into the spiritual realm, to help with the crossover, to help protect you from uktebulwa, to make sure that you fight, to make sure that you protect, to make sure that uba itlozi elihle as you cross over to the other side. And these rituals would be done, and then one would then be buried around the yard, and you'll find that in the yards, mabitla, there would be just the back of the yard. Some would be just as you enter the yard, but But there you are, still again going into the same space where it's only your blood ancestors. And then inzilo will start ho ila ho ba ka hare ho sesila sa lefu. This would be maybe 6 a year, depending on the culture and the relation of the person to you in the physical realm, if it's your partner, your wife, your husband, your children. And after that period of mourning, whether it's 6 months or a year, then there would be a cleansing ceremony for those in the physical realm, um, so that they are no longer in mourning, they are no longer under the dark cloth. And then there would be also a ceremony to, I'm going to say, lift your name, and to help now with the crossover processes. Because what is understood in the spirit realm is that one does not pass away today and tomorrow they're already in the spirit realm fully. We still need to do those rituals and processes to separate or to detach you, or to make you aware that you're no longer dependent on the physical body to function. You are now spirit. And that's why you need to be reminded of how to function in the spiritual realm. And the only way you'll be reminded is if, as in the physical realm, a baby is welcomed by the mother, the father, and the family, and they're then nurtured. And by looking at us, they learn how to crawl, they learn how to sit, they learn how to walk, they learn how to eat, they even learn how to speak. So when you go back into the spiritual realm, because you have been in the physical realm for so long, that for me, I believe, and through the consultations that I've done, being in contact with spirit, I do truly believe that's also the same process, but it's different in a sense that you are being reminded of who you are in spirit. So the process does not really take as long as it does in the physical realm, where it will be like 7 years. It can take a year, it can take 2 years, but for others, it can take longer depending on what rituals were done and what rituals were not done. So then the crossover happens. But when the crossover happens again, remember during the period of us doing all these rituals, it was a time, the morning, it is the time where we are again saying, your spirit must come and inform us if there's any cleansings that are needed, things that you did, the deeds of the physical realm, if there's anything that's blocking you from entering into the spiritual realm. As we cleanse at the end of the morning period, we also understand that if there's anything left behind from your side in the physical realm, then let us cleanse it so that uzoba idlozi elihle. And that's when we will then distribute your physical things. Now we talk about the estate of the deceased, but this is where everything will be distributed, and we distribute the belongings of the deceased, so that we are saying, let nothing that is in the physical realm worry you. Everything has been allocated to somebody to take care of. You have nothing to worry about in the physical realm. Even your children, they have a guardian now. If they are like old enough to take care of themselves, then we will say they are old enough. It's a father, it's a mother now. But here, this will be the guardian. This will be the guide to your children. But now, as we look at our lives now, guys, a lot has changed. One thing that we need to also remember about the way we were raised is religion, the coming of religion into our lives or into our ancestors' lives. I always say that for me, I understand it as protection measures that were taken by our grandparents or our great grandparents, where culture was no longer taught, uphahla was no longer taught, not because they didn't know it, but because they were under pressure and they were oppressed to say, you do not follow this way, this is the way, and this is the only way. When religion came and Christianity was oppressed upon them, and they needed to look at the Bible, and they needed to look at verses that says, ba phelang, ba siyo, ba shweleng ha bana kabelo ho ba phelang. You cannot go mabitleng, you cannot talk to the dead, you cannot, all those things. When they came, There came up to a point where I feel our ancestors said, let us protect our children, and the only way to protect them is to hide or to not teach them our ways and only teach them this way so that they know nothing but this. Therefore, they will not have to rebel or they will not have to do anything to fight for this. And that's where we find now the culture of religion coming in. And if we look at our parents, we are a generation where now our parents were fully invested and were fully raised in religion. Our grandparents were still a little bit cultural, but there was now no longer a dingaka tse ngata. It was more ba profeta, it was more a church way of doing things than the traditional way of doing things. The dipika, dituku, Bible, metsi, sewasho, and swasho being more letswai than anything. So all these things, remember, you are socialized into who you are. You learn how to behave through the society that you live in. So we then have our grandparents who were churchgoers, so elders of an apostolic church. The only thing we knew was church at home. Wednesday, you go and you pray at church. Saturday, you are at the choir, you are singing, it's choir day. Sunday school in the morning, 11 o'clock, it's church. Church gets out at 5 o'clock, you go home, you eat. Tomorrow, it's school. So that was the life. And I always say that for me, there was never a day where ubungoma or any traditional things were discussed. So it was not a topic that was ever, discussed at home. They never criticized it, but we never talked about it. So I wouldn't really know, or I can't really stand here and say they were against it or they were not against it. But I believe they were not against it because my grandfather is from Mozambique, Shai, and now that I think of it, he used to party a lot. When he left Shai, he took the sand, the beach sand, and he took the beach water, and he had a space where he had his white cloth, his enamel dish with the sand, and everything else that he had, even the gin, the garden's gin, and he would the snuff was there and it stayed under his bed somewhere in a corner, and he would always pull it, but he would be alone. You just, see that, oh yeah, Unkulu is, and we thought it was prayer because prayer is what we knew. Only now do I understand that, oh, Bega Pach Unkulu, he was actually speaking, communicating to his ancestors. Now, my grandfather passed on, and we are church people. So he's in a hospital. One, in hospitals, you don't even have a chance to go collect the spirit of your loved one. I'm a nurse. When a person dies in government hospital, I'll make an example with the government hospital, because in private, when someone dies, we call the funeral parlor, the family. Then they arrange the undertaker comes, they take the person, that's it, because they don't, in private hospital, we have what they call cold rooms, but you don't have like a mortuary like the government hospital where someone can stay 3-4 days. So if there's a delay, we will take the person to the cold room, but they cannot stay more than 24 hours in the cold room. So in government hospital, a person dies, we're going to push them into a room. It can either be a dressing room, a storeroom, because they need to stay an hour or until they're cold, before we can take them to the mortuary. But my thing is, when somebody dies, we push them out of the room and we are already preparing the bed for somebody else to come in. So sometimes the person can die and the family can be there within an hour, but when they arrive, already someone is already occupying the room, because maybe there might be even backlog in casualty. So the cleaning is just the cleaning of, disinfecting the room, but not spiritual cleaning, if I can put it like that. The individual is taken to the hospital mortuary. Still, nothing has been said to the spirit because nobody's talking to the spirit. For us, the body is dead, is cold. We do what we do, we work. Then, lucky people you'll have when they are fetched from the hospital mortuary, a family member present, and they will then explain to them that this is the hospital that you were at. Now we're taking you to the funeral parlor of Bob, where you will be staying for the next days until we are able to bring you home for your burial. Lucky when you still have people who understand culture. General, maybe 60-70% of the cases, you find that the funeral parlor, the undertaker, comes and fetches the body, and the family is not even there. The family is only going to see the body on Friday from their funeral parlor. Or they do come just to identify the body, but nobody speaks to the spirit. And this body has moved from the ward to the mortuary, to another mortuary, no communication. Then Friday, when it's time to go and prepare the body, the cleansing, there's no herb that is taken. We just go there with the vaslap and the clothes that the person is going to wear, and we do just a tap of the face and the body, and we dress this person. Lucky are those that will then still be cultural and traditional, and they will have umuti that would be carried, and this is the muti that will be cleansing this person, and they will talk with their loved one as they are cleansing them with the herb, with impande yasekai. Lucky. And then Friday comes. It's Friday. In the morning we've cleansed. Then the body moves from the mortuary. This is where then the talking really starts to say raunka ko mashareng. I think many people still do it. Most people still do that. We are go high. The person comes home, and then obviously Tibelo, Mulindelo, and then Saturday we go to the graveyards. Now you'll find, because of trying to minimize costs, already Califuriats are leisure. Everybody's there. We don't want people coming back after a year. And leisurely Bewe, after the tombstone is erected right there at the funeral, we go home. Sunday morning we wake up. There's already a ship in the yard to cleanse us, because others are staying abroad, others are staying far, for us to come again and gather here after 6 months. Expenses that cannot that can be, I guess, avoided. So we do everything. So the mourning period also, it's cut, where you will find that others will say we will still know that we're in mourning, and there will be a release after 3 or after a month, after 3 months, but the cleansing is done, and that's how things are done now. So when the time comes for the spirit to then cross over, to transition into spirit, there are no rituals in between that were done. So again, before everything was fast, like quickly done or instant now, as we are in the 21st century, then we know that you would have someone buried, and then when that person is buried, there will be that mourning period, and leisure would be seen, or the tombstone ceremony would be seen as a time to celebrate the life of that person, and to release them, and to let them go, and to allow them to enter into the other side. That is how it used to be done 90s, just before we entered into the 2000s. But like I say, life is now fast. People are staying far. Costs should be minimized. So guys, when you look at what I said at the beginning of the video and how things move fast, we are moving fast in the physical realm because we're time conscious, but in the spiritual realm, time is linear. As much as time is linear, the rituals and the transformation or the transition from the physical realm to the spiritual realm still take the time that is required to be taken. Now somebody comes and say, Gogo, my grandmother passed away a year ago, and I keep dreaming of her saying to me, please come and fetch me. I need to come back home. But what does that mean? What do I do? So what grandma simply means is that, okay, you buried me, the tombstone was erected, now moya waka wasola. And these are the spirits that are prone to uktebula. This, and remember again, religion, people have gone as far as saying we do not visit the graveyards, Hari Mabitleng, because we don't worship. And we will talk about going to the graveyards and why we do that on in another lesson. But religion has taught people that you don't go to the graveyard, you don't worship the dead. We don't go to there to worship, we don't go there to pray to the dead. Like I said, topic for another day. But that is then the thing. Gogo says, I must visit her. Gogo says, we must fetch her. So, what Gogo is simply saying is that I've passed on, but my spirit is still wandering outside of Isbaya Saseka. I have not crossed over to my ancestors. I need to be assisted. And when we say we're doing this ritual, Yalijwe, and we are bringing the spirit back home, in the physical realm, to say we must never forget or Nomachini existed in this family, and this is the grandmother. Hence, when you look at the tombstone, it will say a daughter, a sister, a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, whatever that the role of this person in the physical realm, it will be written there on their tombstone, so that everybody who sees this tombstone remembers who this person was to them. And then that ceremony in many cultures will also represent the bringing back of the spirit home. And when we say we're bringing back the spirit, it's not the physical yard that we are bringing the spirit back to, but we are talking about bringing them back home, saying, be welcomed by your ancestor, meaning cross over. Your time in this realm is no longer relevant. Crossover, be it elihle, and this is then again where we understand that it will be the time maybe Gela Ugogo will come back and give a baton. If maybe for myself, I am a spiritual healer. This is the time where I would then come back and hand over the baton to somebody else, and oh, twasu gogwake. But we also need to understand that concept in itself. It's a topic again for another day, that we don't trust abadimu barona, we don't trust angkhono ntatemoholo, but they worked with spirits, and you are given a gift, and the spirit is what works with you. But because your grandmother or your grandfather carried the spirit in their lifetime, they are able to then pass it over to you. Hence, they become, I'll say, your mamemeza, the person that becomes the communicator, the one that you can really communicate with and understand. But the spirit comes as a spirit to function, in function. If ngigedla, then it means the spirit comes and it knows herbs and it's going to teach me herbs. But my grandfather, because he carries the spirit and he works with herbal medicine in his lifetime, he'll then be the angel. I'm going to use the word angel. So now that you have done the ceremony of bringing Ugogo back home, the crossover, then can Itlozlako function, or can your ancestor function? Yes, guys, they led a life of religion and they did not practice these things. Hence, we that are going through these things, those that are called, those that have the gift and are called, hence we have to do so many rituals now before we even go through the process of Intwaso itself. You have to go to Gazitlos, you have to Gogo, we go to the Mikulukutwani, we go to the rivers, your pathas landamatlos, because those rituals were never done for them. But if everything was done, then we wouldn't have to go to all these places, because I'd go home and everybody will be home, and I would not need to be fetching the spirits from all over. I will always say it. I will say it until I don't know when. I am no longer in this journey to fix the mistakes of the past, but I understand that I've been called to bring healing so that the generations that come after me receive healing. I always say that, Mina, even if my child is gifted and they have to but twice they go through being ubungoma and go throh parulumundao, they will never go through the same processes, the long route that I took, because I have prepared the path for them. Yes, I cannot heal 100 years worth of oppression and generational wounds in my lifetime alone, but the little that I've done, I know that it will pave a better way for my children and their children and their children's. So, what I'm saying is that they might not have led a life, but when they are now entering into spirit, spirit knows no limits. There's no box. Religion is a box. We are boxed in this way of life, and you do it the right way, or the left is a wrong way, and it's a sin and it doesn't exist. So when they passed on and they become spiritual beings, they need to function in spirit. And spirit will always ask what fits spirit. So when your ancestor come back, your gogo, your grandfather come back and they're asking for rituals, guys, we have our ancestors that are coming and giving us gifts that they didn't take on. Just because ugogo was not inyanga or she didn't take bungakabahae does not mean that she's not going to come back and hand over the baton to me, because nobody else is going to come back. The baton was handed over to her. She didn't do what she was supposed to do or what was meant for her to do. One, maybe because of the circumstances, yes, and there's blame, but also we cannot blame them because they were also trying to survive in this lifetime. They adapted to what was around them and they had to adapt in order to survive. We are here because they adapted. We are grateful for that. Now that Nkunu Watla or Famasila, like, yeah, now I've never seen Kamasela and. I've got somebody who made me laugh so much. Like, yeah, this was the person that was against Bongaka. She wouldn't want us to go to Mikiti Adingaka or even watch anything that was Bongaka. And now that she's passed on, she's the first one that says to me, answer your gift. Answer your calling. I mean, take your gift, answer your calling. Because now the spirit knows that there's no oppression, there's nothing that's stopping you from taking the calling. Let's remember we live in different times and therefore we will behave differently. We cannot point fingers. We need to understand that we are here to heal. And yes, mistakes were done in lifetimes, and yes, things were done in another lifetime that left us in the situations that we're in. Where before you even understand the calling, you have to be taught the basic of the basics, how to communicate with your ancestors, how to be a spiritual being and not a religious being. Spirit has always been there since the beginning of humankind. Therefore, spirituality has always existed. Each and every religion has a birth date. That this is the date of Christianity, this is the date of Buddhism, this is the date of whatever Islamic religion. Every religion has a birth date. But spirituality talks to the spirit, and what we know is that spirit has been there since the beginning of humanity. Because without spirit, we don't exist. We are, because spirit is in us. Yes, they did not lead a life of traditions and life of culture. When they pass on, they will come back because tradition and culture come from spirituality and they are spiritual beings. So, in order for them to transition fully into spirit, spiritual rituals in the physical realm needs to take place. I hope that I've given clarity to say, why do our grandparents that led a religious life come back and ask of us to do what is then known as traditional things? We're talking to spirit, guys, and spirit will always ask what will free spirit and what will make spirit come to life. So go to a medium if it's comfortable for you. And I'm saying medium because we're all mediums, you know, I've always said that. But when I say medium, I mean if you feel uncomfortable with the process of going endumbeni to see ugogwa lahla mathambo, do whatever that feels comfortable for you, but get out of the space of religion, because in that space you're not going to find the answers that you're looking for. Go to a spiritual person and get guidance on how to help your loved one in the spiritual realm fully transition and cross over into the spiritual realm. I'm Gog Noma. This is Learning with Noma, your home of comprehensive learning and healing. I am on Facebook, I am on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, and obviously here on YouTube. For consultations, please WhatsApp Togoza Gogo to 079 910 8841. You can simply go online, www learningwithnoma.com. And when you get to the website, you go to the booking online. And when you go there, you will find all the prizes. You're going to find my diary. It's open. All the available times are there. You just click on the time. And please, guys, note, if you did not make payment, you did not book. All bookings are booked and confirmed once payment is cleared. You do not choose PayPal, you choose Yoco. No matter the part of the world that you're in, it will automatically what do you say, it will automatically use the currency that you are using. So you go to Yoco and you pay via Yoco, not PayPal. And once you've made your payment, you go to your emails, you'll receive a confirmation email and all the details that are needed for the consultation, and I will see you in your consultation. I'm hopeful that I've answered the question. If there's any more questions related to the topic, please leave the question in the comment section. And also, if you've got a topic suggestion that you would like for me to talk about, please leave it in the comments below. Thokozani bantwana beNkosi. Thokozani, but child.